Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Football. And it is January 8th, 2018, and Wildcard weekend. Yes, Wildcard weekend has ended, and there were a few very good games to digest, to watch. Told us a lot about the NFL. We still have the whole coaching carousel going on. The Giants did not play. That is another thing that is very disappointing to the majority of us up here in the New York area. We saw Bills Mafia get knocked out, but played somewhat admirably, I would say, down there in Jacksonville. Again, Blake Bortles' legs really won that game, but we'll dive into the matchups here, and I want to kind of just jump right off and get right into this Titans and Chiefs game, and it was a very disappointing game for me, because I am a huge Andy Reid supporter. I think Andy Reid is one of the best play designers, one of the better offensive coaches in this game. And we saw it kind of come to fruition in this game early on. The first 20 plays are scripted by these NFL teams the majority of the times, and the Chiefs came out with guns a-blazing against the Titans team, a team that the Chiefs are much better than in the majority of people's opinions. Not in this game, though. Not by the end. The Chiefs jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Travis Kelce was burning the Titans' secondary. They were actually giving the ball to Kareem Hunt, and everything seemed like it was going to the script of what most NFL fans thought it was going to be. At halftime, the game was 21-3. The Chiefs scored with seconds left in the half against the Titans. Demarcus Robinson with a 14-yard touchdown pass from Alex Smith. And in that half, there was a big blow. Travis Kelce leaves the game, enters the concussion protocol after a hit by Jonathan Sifrian, former Jacksonville Jaguar. And then the third quarter and the fourth quarter was all Tennessee Titans. Marcus Mariota threw a touchdown pass to himself. Yes, that actually happened. That is going to be a trivia question someday. Who did Marcus Mariota throw his first touchdown pass in the playoffs to? It was himself. He throws it, gets batted up in the air, he catches it and dives for the pylon. Very athletic play, something you would expect from a quarterback like Marcus Mariota in terms of his athleticism, but very, very fortuitous, very, very lucky. And the Chiefs couldn't do anything in the second half. It was absolutely pathetic. Yes, you lost one of your main weapons in Travis Kelce, but they showed no ability to effectively call an offense, and it's such an indictment on Andy Reid and play caller Matt Nagy, who just got hired by the Chicago Bears. I do like that hire. Again, this is coming off of one of his more uglier NFL games. But he's still a great offensive mind, and he can groom Trubisky, but we'll get into that later. But Andy Reid does it again. When you think Andy Reid can make a push in the playoffs, he tends to just botch it up somehow. And I hate to say this because, again, I have so much respect for him as a play designer. But, man, he has a track record of just failing. In January, we can go back to the 2013 season when the Chiefs had a 38-10 lead against an Andrew Luck-led team in the Colts. An Andrew Luck-led team, mind you, that has a terrible general manager, an adequate head coach, if I want to be kind, and really no defense or no offensive line to speak of. They go up to a 38-10 lead in Arrowhead, and they let Andrew Luck lead the team down the field and win 45-44. And then you go to last year against the Patriots, where they lost 27-20 in Foxborough. Doesn't seem like that's too big of an indictment on Andy Reid at all. But if you remember, in the fourth quarter when they had the ball, they were moving at snail's pace when they were down. It was horrible time management of the clock, and it just led a lot of people to question Andy Reid. And in this game against the Titans, it's the same thing. What were you doing in the second half? You have the NFL league rusher in Kareem Hunt. Led the league in rushing this year. Rookie out of Toledo. Very, very intriguing young player. You gave him the ball 11 times. And with a 21-3 lead, in the second half, you gave the rock to him 5 frickin' times. What are you doing? You have a 21-3 lead and you're only giving Kareem Hunt 5 carries in the second half. It absolutely is mind-boggling that that is the way that this all transpired. And again, like I said, I get it. You lost Travis Kelce. He was a huge part of your game plan. Understood. But this is going to go down as another January mishap, another indictment on Andy Reid. And it was terrible to watch the Titans just drive back down the field. Eric Decker catches the 22-yard touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota. They win by 1 point. Man, Chiefs at home. What a letdown. We saw the Chiefs come out with guns a-blazing in the beginning of the 2017 season, and then they regressed. A big reason why they regressed was because Andy Reid's play calling did not match up with what they needed it to be. So he passed the play calling over to Matt Nagy. And Matt Nagy stabilized the offense, and they came back, and they were still a very, very quality team heading into the playoffs. And one of the main reasons he did that was by giving Kareem Hunt the freaking ball. Holy crap, man. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that all that happened, and the Titans were able to pull this win out. And you know what? I'm sure Tom Brady sitting there clapping his hands together saying thank you so much, because now he gets to face the Tennessee Titans and Marcus Mariota up in Foxborough instead of an Andy Reid, Alex Smith-led team in the Chiefs. But you know what? They didn't deserve to go after that showing. And you know, a lot of people are smashing Alex Smith. Alex Smith's terrible. Alex Smith. I'm not blaming Alex Smith. He deserves some of the blame, so maybe I should retract that a little bit, because everyone deserves some of the blame. But Alex Smith still was putting dimes on players. How many drop passes were in this game for both sides, the Titans and the Chiefs? It was very, very sloppy. I mean, the first play of the game, Alex dropped a dime right to Tyreek Hill, hits the kid in the face mask. It's like, hold on to the football. There were, I think, 7 drops in this game total between the Titans and the Chiefs. So it was really, really sloppy. A lot of playoff jitters, you can tell. Eric Decker dropped an easy third down ball for the Titans. But that's just the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles. Derrick Henry had a 35-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter of this game. That guy is a load to bring down. He's not a polished product whatsoever. And you could tell that the Titans sort of missed DeMarco Murray, not from really a rushing aspect, but from a pass protection aspect. I want to say it was in the first quarter or the second quarter at some point in this game. Justin Houston just blew Marcus Mariota up. And you're like, Derrick Henry totally whiffed on the pass protection on that play. But that's just the way it is. Good for the Titans to move on. The Chiefs, another very, very disappointing January playoff loss for Andy Reid and company. And I just can't believe that this just keeps happening to them. And then the night game on Saturday was the Falcons and the Rams. You know what? I picked the Rams to win this game, and I want to kind of call myself out for that because, yes, the Rams are exciting. They're the new pretty girl in the NFL that everyone is trying to emulate and find out how the offense ticks the way they did. But we kind of, at least I, kind of overlooked the fact that they're so inexperienced. I knew that, but I thought that at home, Falcons traveling across country, the Falcons, I should have looked at the fact that the Falcons basically played a playoff game the week prior, beating up Cam Newton, making Cam Newton look foolish in week 17. And the fact that this is a playoff-tested team. Matt Ryan has been in this situation time and time again. Dan Quinn went to a Super Bowl last year. This team goes to the playoffs, seems like every year now. Makes hay in the playoffs. They have studs like Julio Jones, Devonta Freeman. Their defense is young, but they're fast. And they made the Rams look young. They made the Rams look like they had the youth that they actually do. And you know what? A lot of this game, too, I look at it, you turn the ball over twice on special teams. Pharoh Cooper, I wouldn't want to show my face in Los Angeles after that game. It was very, very unsettling, to say the least. But the one, I don't want to really bash him too much because it did hit, I want to say Blake Countess, I think it was, his foot and then bounced into Pharoh Cooper, but Pharoh Cooper could have caught it. And then there's the other one where he just bobbled the kick. Falcons get it. You got to think how much that sways the game. I mean, the final score of this game was 26-13 Falcons. And the Rams defense had the Falcons stopped twice, forced a punt, and the Rams special teams gave the ball right back to the Falcons. That is one of the most frustrating things from a football standpoint, especially for a defense. If the defense stops them, then it has to go right back on the field with much better field position. And that's exactly what happened in this game. And we saw Jared Goff, still young. We saw him have a really nice touchdown pass in this game to Cooper Kupp. The future is very, very bright for this team. We saw Aaron Donald just absolutely dominating the offensive line of the Falcons, wreaking havoc throughout the game. but it wasn't enough. Matt Ryan was running through for his life a lot of this game, but it just was not enough to overcome the mistakes that the Rams made and the Falcons' experience. Now, here's 2 stats I want to show you. Falcons, they had a lead. Chiefs, they had a lead. Atlanta, rushing the ball. On the road, mind you. Devonta Freeman had 18 carries. Tevin Coleman had 14. Kareem Hunt had 11. Now, that's the difference between sound coaching right there. And I never thought I'd say that about Steve Sarkisian after this rocky season that he had. But he gave the ball to his playmakers, and they made plays. And they also got the ball to Julio Jones, and he had a red zone touchdown, something that he never gets. And that's an indictment on his play calling. But he had 10 targets in this game, 9 catches. That's efficiency, 94 yards, and a touchdown in this game. So I'm excited to see the Falcons go and play Philly, because they can beat Philly. Philly's kind of in a rocky state right now. Saw Nick Foles struggle in Week 16 and the little bit that he's played in Week 17. Falcons can definitely go up into Philadelphia and beat them. And then they're going to be in the NFC Championship game, either in New Orleans or in Minnesota. So the Falcons kind of got to, after overcoming the odds here, beating the Rams, they were not favored to win this game. If I would have bet on the game, I would have bet for the Falcons, but I still would have thought they would have lost. But the Rams, very, very young team. We'll see if they bring Sammy Watkins back next year. And if you're a Rams fan, you're very, very intrigued about the future. And the Falcons, I tip my cap to you. You guys played well. And I'm looking forward to watching you guys next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Then we got the Bills in Jacksonville to start off at 1:05 p.m. Sunday. And this game kind of went as a lot of us expected. I want to say there was a lot of wind in this game, which I guess you can kind of see in the passing games for both of these teams, because there really was no offense in this game. There was a lot of sloppiness, a lot of punts and things of that nature. But there's one play I really want to point out, and it was when the Buffalo Bills, Tyrod Taylor, led the team all the way down to the red zone, and they get to the 1-yard line after a few penalties and things of that nature. Buffalo is one of the best teams in the league when it comes to rushing. They're number 1 in rushing, but that's also because of Tyrod Taylor's legs. But they're number 1 in rushing. And they decide in this low-scoring game, after an 18-play drive, to throw a fade against Jalen Ramsey to Kelvin Benjamin. Something that I can't understand what they were thinking in that moment. You literally possessed the ball this entire time. You had some penalties that helped you out. Earned, though. And you decide to throw a fade. And then you take a penalty for offensive pass interference, because Kelvin Benjamin is not going to create any sort of separation, even with his body, against Jalen Ramsey. And then you get backed up to the 11-yard line. And then from there, Tyrod Taylor gets basically sacked, but it was tackled by Barrett Church. Tyrod Taylor throws an incomplete pass. You guys are settled for a field goal. If you guys just ran the ball to 1-yard line with, I don't know, Shady McCoy. Oh, Shady McCoy's banged up. Run it with Marcus Murphy. Run it with the 260-pound back you have in Mike Tolbert. But don't throw a freaking fade, man. Like, what are you trying to do? Use your strength against Jacksonville's weakness. And that defense doesn't really have many weaknesses, but if there is any, it's probably running up their gut. Yeah, and I know they have Marshall Darius, former pick from you guys out of Alabama, because you guys traded him to him. But that was just a dumb mistake by the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott and company. But the rest of this game, it was slow-paced. It was punt after punt after punt after punt, interception, punt after punt after punt, interception. We also had the Jags with their touchdown. That was a very well-orchestrated drive by Blake Bortles, mainly because of his scrambling ability, his legs. And that's kind of what the story of this game was. If you could point to one thing, it was Blake Bortles beating the Bills with his legs. No one would have really thought that. And Buffalo held them to 4th down at the 1. No one could not punch it in. Leonard Fournette kept getting stuffed. I got to just applaud Buffalo's defense. They played phenomenally in this game. But a little play action, Blake Bortles hits Ben Koyak in the back of the end zone. And it looked like he could have bobbled it too. He barely got his feet in bounds. And that's how close this game really was. And now, I know Jacksonville beat Pittsburgh back in Week 5. Absolutely embarrassed them. That defense is something to be scared of, but the Steelers' defense gets to face Blake Bortles in Heinz Field. I'm sure they're happy about that as well. When it comes to the AFC wildcard games, you got Blake Bortles and Marcus Mariota as the two quarterbacks coming out of there, instead of Alex Smith and the Chiefs. And then Buffalo was happy to be in the playoffs, but it wasn't going to translate to any wins, even though it almost did here, which is kind of the wild thing when you think about it. Tyrod gets knocked out on that last drive. It was a bad-looking injury. His head smashed on the ground. I hated seeing it. Then Nate Peterman came in, and he ended up throwing a pick to seal the win for Jacksonville, and that's kind of fitting, I guess you could say. But this is just a kid. He doesn't have a lot of zip on the ball. He tried to throw, I think, from the far hash out towards the sideline, and Jalen Ramsey was like, no, jumped it, knocked it in the air, intercepted it. Ground kind of helped him intercept it, but the NFL has no stand rule on what a catch is these days. So they gave the pick to him, which I felt like they couldn't overturn it. To be honest, it wasn't conclusive enough. Well, Buffalo, I got to clap my hands to that defense and holding. I mean, Jacksonville's offense isn't anything to be scared of, but still, you held Leonard Fournette to 2.7 yards per carry, had a goal line stand that is something to remember. Took them on fourth down to go for it. This could have easily been a 6-3 game, and would have changed that last drive for Buffalo as well. But 10-3, Jacksonville advances. Buffalo gets to go home, but glad they got that monkey off their back when it comes to the playoffs, because that was a long drought. They're able to defeat that narrative that they can't go to the playoffs. And then the most exciting game. The most exciting game of the slate was the Panthers going to the Superdome, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, to play the New Orleans Saints. This is the third matchup between these two teams. And the Saints took care of business twice against them fairly easily. And this game was something to remember. It really was. And we saw surgery. We saw a surgeon at work here. And by a surgeon, I mean Drew Brees. We saw Drew Brees dissect the Carolina Panthers. So in the first two matchups, because these are division rivals, they play each other twice a year. The first two matchups, the Carolina Panthers could not stop the run. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram ran all over the Panthers. And we know the strength of the Panthers is probably their run defense. So this game, they sold out to stop the run. And they put it in the hands of a quarterback who is a Hall of Famer. It's going to be a Hall of Famer. And that quarterback dissected Carolina. His passes are so accurate, such pristine placement. And we saw that early on that pass to Ted Ginn. Hits Ted Ginn in stride. Ted Ginn, 80-yard pass to start the scoring off at the end of the first quarter in this game. And we saw Graham Gano miss a field goal early on, which is incredibly disappointing from a Panthers standpoint. But then Drew Brees led him down, hit Josh Hill, then Graham Gano, then Zach Line got a 1-yard touchdown, Graham Gano again. So Carolina could not finish drives with a touchdown in this game. You could point to many different factors. You can point to Cam's receivers dropping touchdown passes, which we saw in this game. Cam actually had a better game. Cam's standpoint, Cam Newton is not the most accurate quarterback. That is not something that a lot of people will give to him, because he really is not. We've seen that before time and time again, especially when he gets flustered. But he was putting the ball in relatively good spots throughout this game, and his receivers were not coming through to him. And you can even argue at the end of the game, if Devin Funchess catches that pass, then we will be talking about how Cam Newton went into the Superdome and beat the Saints. But that's just not the way it happened. Devin Funchess didn't really get his head around and mistimed the jump. He just looked awkward trying to catch that pass. But Cam Newton orchestrated some late drives, hitting Greg Olsen for the 14-yard touchdown. Christian McCaffrey on that angle route just burns the linebacker and then burns the safety, Marcus Williams, all the way to the end zone to make this a very interesting game. Because Carolina stopped the run. And Carolina possessed the ball. Drew Brees had 26 minutes time of possession to 33 for the Carolina Panthers. But it wasn't enough, because you put the ball in the hands of a Hall of Fame quarterback who has not aged and is not going downhill like people seem to think. He's accepted his role as, we're going to be a time of possession team where we're going to run the ball and rely on our defense. And when teams sell out like the Panthers did to stop that, to stop the identity of the Saints right now, You still have Drew Brees, and Drew Brees hasn't lost a step, and he will dissect you, and he did here. It's like a surgeon with a scalpel, man. He just cuts you apart. We saw some of them passes to Josh Hill. Some of them passes to Michael Thomas were absolutely ridiculous. Back shoulder throws that only their receivers could catch. This guy's almost 40 years old. He hasn't lost a step at all. And people who think that he has just because they have a running game now, something that he has never had really with the Saints, you're not looking at football correctly. This is going to be an incredibly exciting game between the Saints and the Vikings. It's a rematch of Week 1 where the Vikings beat the Saints. Now the Saints have their identity all set up. They have an incredible rushing tandem with Ingram and Kamara. There's no AP to clog up the running lanes. Their defense is playing out of this world. What a rookie class from their defense. Williams from Utah. Trey Hendrickson from Florida Atlantic. Marshawn Lattimore from Ohio State. Alex Anzalone, he's hurt, but he's a kid from Florida. Saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He looks like he was chiseled out of marble. Just an incredibly young team with a defense and a running game now who still has Drew Brees playing at a high level. So a lot of excitement surrounding this team. And that Vikings game should be very, very entertaining. But you know what? Cam Newton couldn't get it done here, but he did orchestrate some late drives, made this game really interesting, did not get a lot of help from his receivers in this game. And when you sell out to stop the run, Panthers, I can't blame you for doing it because you were torched over 5 yards a carry against the Saints earlier in the year, twice. But you still got Drew Brees to reckon with, and he got it done with 376 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Cam Newton at 349 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. Greg Olsen, Christian McCaffrey, both going over 100 yards with both their touchdowns. Kalen Clay had that really bad drop in the end zone that I was saying. If that's caught, this game could have been totally different. But it wasn't. Michael Thomas being as efficient as Julio Jones with 8 catches on 9 targets, 131 yards. Teddy Ginn had the 4 for 115 with the 1, and Josh Hill had the 1 as well. So the Saints in this NFC, this could be a Saints-Falcons NFC Championship game. Could easily be a Vikings-Falcons. Hell, the Eagles could surprise some people too. It's not write them off just yet. It's just I feel like they have an uphill battle despite them having the number 1 seed and home field advantage. But that was the wild card week right there. That was the wild card week. And I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the coaching world because the coaching carousel is in full swing right now. And people are getting eliminated, like the Chiefs, and then they're losing people of the staff. Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, leaves the Chiefs, and he will become the head coach of the Bears. And like I said, the thing I like about having Matt Nagy as the head coach of the Bears is they have a young quarterback. Their offense has been pretty putrid the last couple years. They have an identity with a running game, and let's hope Matt Nagy can use that because him and Andy Reid did not in this game. But realistically, he's a young offensive mind who can bring the most out of Trubisky. By all reports, he really liked Mitchell Trubisky coming out of UNC. So now he gets to work with him. So I like this hire. You wanted to get an offensive coach, somebody different than John Fox, someone who can bring an identity. Hopefully they can keep Vic Fangio, their really talented defensive coordinator, on staff now. That defense was stronger than people thought it would be. Keeping Vic Fangio would be huge for the Bears. And he interviewed for the head coaching job of the Bears, but wanted to get a young offensive mind, kind of like the Rams did with Goff, to help Trubisky progress. And Nagy is a Jersey guy. Just got to throw that out there because, Dan Quinn's a Jersey guy. He's a Morristown guy. That's where I live. So I always have a soft spot for Dan Quinn. It was kind of hard to see him blow that lead knowing he's from the town that I live in, a little town in New Jersey. But just a little background on Nagy. He's basically been an Andy Reid disciple going all the way back to the beginning of his coaching career. He was a coaching intern with the Eagles back in 2008. And he stayed with the Eagles until 2012. Then he goes with Andy Reid to the Chiefs in 2013. Joins up with them. Worked his way up from an offensive quality control coach to the quarterback's coach to the offensive coordinator. And now he is the Bears head coach. Good for Mr. Matt Nagy. The biggest coaching hire, though, of the week has been John Gruden. We all know John Gruden the last 9 years or so. He has been in the booth of Monday Night Football with his crazy antics, his descriptive ways of describing what is going on the field. I'm going to miss that. He was very entertaining very energetic. His eyes are always bulging out of his head, which was crazy. But he signs a 10-year, $100 million deal, which is absolutely one of the craziest things you'll ever hear for a head coach, getting paid $10 million a year for 10 years. And people are pointing, hey, this is like an Al Davis kind of hire. What is Mark Davis doing when it comes to this much money? But I do believe Derek Carr, he's regressed. He needs a coach like Gruden right now. He does. He has regressed. And from the standpoint of Mark Davis and ownership, this is a great hire. Somewhat nostalgic because he used to be with the Raiders and then he went and beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl the next year after they traded him. But that's besides the point. But it's a great hire, nostalgic hire. This will also help gain fandom because this is a nationally known person in their new city of Las Vegas. So a lot of eyeballs will be on the Raiders. And they're moving to Las Vegas the next 2 years. But this does not mean, all these positive things does not mean that it's going to automatically make the Raiders a playoff team next year. Or that this is going to be a successful hire at all. There's a lot of troubles on this Raiders roster. And yes, you have a lot of good things to build around. Khalil Mack, even though he's going to need to get paid soon. One of the best pass rushers in the league on the defense. You still got Bruce Irvin on the defense. You got a lot of young pieces on the defense, but you'd still like to see more progression over there. Then you got the offense, you got Carr, you got Amari Cooper, and you got a running game. You got a really solid offensive line as well. But let us not forget, man, John Gruden hasn't coached in years. It's been over 10 years since John Gruden has coached. Back when he coached, there were these things called fullbacks, and they huddled after every play. The NFL is very different. It's very dynamic. It's changing all of the time. 1 year removed from the NFL could be enough, a lot to handle. This is 10 years, and I'm sure he's well aware of this, and I'm sure he's going to surround himself with the right staff, which he has been doing. But that's still a long gap between when he coached. And yes, Gruden won a Super Bowl. Gotta give him credit, albeit it was with Tony Dungy's players. But people kind of seem to conveniently forget that John Gruden was 45-53 in his last 6 seasons in the NFL with the Buccaneers. He didn't groom a quarterback at all, and this guy's a quarterback guy. And he didn't win a playoff game in that time frame. People seem to forget that. That's why he lost his job. If he continued to be the great coach that he was with Tony Dungy's team, he probably never would have lost his job. So that's something that you really need to just remember. Just keep it in your brain, or as he would say, your lexicon. So that doesn't mean the Raiders are going to automatically be fixed. This is an uphill battle. I'm very excited to watch it because Gruden is a dynamic personality. And he obviously does know how to coach football. But this doesn't mean you're bringing in the savior of the franchise. I'm so curious to see how we view this 10-year, $100 million deal in 5 years. And again, I could see why Mark Davis wanted to do it. Team is moving. You need to keep him very relevant. You're trying to land this big boom guy. You've been trying to do that for some time now. This is an offensive guy. So you have a young quarterback who's regressed. Makes sense. But it doesn't mean it's a match made in heaven. As for other coaching vacancies that are going around the league right now, I expect the Lions to hire Matt Patricia, who is the defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. I mainly expect that because there's a link there. There's a lot of rumors coming out. And again, the Patriots, you're not going to hear anything maybe officially quite yet because they haven't even played their first playoff game yet. But he's interviewed with the Giants and the Lions, and I expect him to take the head coaching job of the Lions for 2 reasons. One, there's a link between Bob Quinn, who used to be affiliated with the New England Patriots organization, and Matt Patricia is their defensive coordinator. So there's a natural link there. I think it's time for these coordinators to finally leave Bill Belichick and start pursuing, and this is a decent opportunity as a shutdown corner over there. His defense could be, I would like to see the Lions defense stop the run better, but they have a lot of young linebackers. They have some speed to that defense with guys like Jared Davis and things of that nature. And another big reason, not just a link between Bob Quinn, but also Jim Bob Cooter is the Lions offensive coordinator, and they want to retain Jim Bob Cooter. And you bring in a defensive coach, you keep the offensive coordinator, he deals with the offense, and Patricia works with the defense, brings in his own guys to be the defensive coordinator, and he could be the head coach, oversee it all. I think that's going to happen for the Lions. Looks like Terrell Austin, the former Lions defensive coordinator, is being linked to the Bengals defensive coordinator job. He's being linked to the Oakland assistant head coach job. So Gruden is trying to get him on his staff as well. That's Terrell Austin. So a couple different things at play with those former Lions coach. So I believe Patricia will be Detroit's head coach. I look at Josh McDaniels. I think there's two teams that Josh McDaniels is looking at right now, and that is the Indianapolis Colts with Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, a young team, a very, very smart mind, Chris Ballard leading the way as the general manager. But again, there's a lot of holes there. I'm sure he's aware of that. Andrew Luck with his injury. You have Jim Irsay, who is an owner who no one really wants to rely upon. And then you have the New York Giants. New York Giants, stable franchise. Very, very stable franchise with a lot of young pieces, but still a lot of cap implications that could restrict the Giants. And we could dive into that a little bit later. But those are the two coaches or the two places that McDaniels, I feel like, is heavily considering. We've also heard rumors that Belichick is going to leave New England and become the Giants head coach. Now, in theory, it makes sense if he were to leave New England that he would become the Giants head coach. I mean, he started his coordinating career here as a defensive coordinator with Parcells. He has a lot of link here. He has the utmost respect for the Mara family, owners of the Giants, a lot of links to New York in that way. Plus, if you wanted to take a shot at Rob Kraft and New England, New York is sort of the big brother to Boston when it comes to East Coast cities. So you could see that, and also they beat the Giants twice, or the Giants beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, but I don't think that would really play into it too much. But I don't think Bill Belichick will be the head coach of the Giants next year. I think he will be back with New England. It would be a surprise if he's not with New England next year. Whatever dilemma that Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick have, I believe they're going to work that out. He's going to be back with the New England Patriots. But would that be something for the news cycle and the New York media if he came to New York? That would be absolutely crazy. But yes, McDaniels, I could see him being the New York Giants' next head coach, in all honesty. He has a lot of pieces to work with, has the second overall pick, so he can get the pick of the litter of the quarterbacks that he wants coming out of this draft. You have Odell Beckham, who you're going to need to sign. You have a lot of holes on your offensive line. You have a solid defense, and you have a very stable franchise that's going to give you more than a year. Probably even more than 2 years. And yes, I know that sounds weird because McAdoo only got 2 years, but I think that was an extenuating circumstance and also someone who was in over his head in Ben McAdoo. McDaniels has done this before. He was a coach with the Broncos. We went over it on the show previous, listen to the last episode about his coaching record and all of that jazz. I think Steve Wilks is another individual. He just got eliminated. He's going to interview with the Giants on Tuesday or Wednesday. He was going to interview Monday, but he wanted a day to kind of collect himself after Carolina lost. He's the Panthers defensive coordinator. Makes sense from the standpoint that Dave Gettleman is the general manager of the New York Giants. That's another reason why I don't think Bill Belichick would ever come to the Giants, because there is a stable general manager. Is going to be the hierarchy, the chain of command, have you, and it's not something that he really has done with the New England Patriots. But anyways, Steve Wilks will interview for the job, and I think he will be in serious consideration. He's a defensive-minded coach, so if you do hire Steve Wilks, there's got to be a huge question on Steve Wilks. Who are you going to bring in to be your offensive coordinator? And that's kind of where everything would kind of come together, because who's going to lead this offense? We had Ben McAdoo doing it the last 4 seasons now. He's gone. Spags, you don't know if he's staying on staff. If you bring in Steve Wilks, will he stay on staff? There's a lot of questions when it comes to that as well. So who's going to be the OC if you get hired, Steve Wilks, because you're a defensive-minded guy? But the link there makes sense. He only has 1 year of coordinating, which is kind of concerning to me, because we saw Ben McAdoo only have 2 years of coordinating under the Giants, and then he gets the head coaching job. I think Pat Shurmur is also another person who is in the running for the Giants job as well. Pat Shurmur is the offensive coordinator for the Vikings and has led Sam Bradford and Case Keenum to be some of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league over the last 2 seasons. And he did not do well, like I said before, with the Browns, but that's what the Browns kind of brush it under the rug, because we all see how what the Browns do, essentially, to coaching prospects, to quarterbacks. It's just a pit. And it's sad that that's the way it's kind of developed, but that's the way it has developed. But moving on to one more segment I wanted to plug here, and that is the Giants for 2018. And we're going to talk a lot in the future about the Giants and their cap situation and what they should do in free agency and the draft and all of these things. But we kind of need to find out who the head coach is going to be, what the identity of the team is going to be. Is it going to be an offensively coached team, a defensively coached team? Who's the offensive coordinator? Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Is it going to be Spags? A lot of questions yet to be answered. It's because the playoffs are still going on. Coaches that could potentially be hired are still in the playoffs, preparing for the playoffs. So they're not too worried about their next stop. Well, at least they are at least putting it on the back burner for a little bit. But I know I'm going to be really busy in the next couple months doing this, everything for Inside the Pylon with the draft guide and fantasy and all that kind of stuff. But I'll still be on here bringing you this content. But I wanted to just bring up the salary cap for the Giants next year. So right now they're terrible in salary cap, but the season's over. They're going to have $22.9 million, basically $23 million of the cap without signing anybody, without signing any kind of free agents or anything. And pending free agents on this team are Shane Vereen, DJ Fluker, Justin Pugh, Keenan Robinson, Jonathan Casillas, Kerry Wynn, Weston Richburg, Geno Smith, Ross Cockrell, Orleans Darkwa, John Greco, Mark Herzlich, Akeem Ayers, Kelvin Shepard, Daryl Morris, Jay Bromley, Tavares King, Nick Becton, Dante Skinner, Nat Burhay, Devon Kennard, Ryan O'Malley, Robert Thomas, Brett Jones, Travis Rudolph, and Adam Bisnohwadi, and Curtis Grant, and John Jalapeno, the guard who stepped in and didn't play terribly. So Weston Richburg's probably going to command a number. I expect the team to go after someone like Justin Pugh. And I look at players like Ben Jones, who was very, very underrated for the Giants. Or Brett Jones, that is. I'm sorry. I see them bringing Brett Jones back. That makes a lot of sense. I see them bringing players like Tavares King, because a lot of these guys you can get on lower contracts. Orleans Darkwa, but there also has to be the coach wants them. And that's one of these things that we can't really talk about yet because we don't know who the frickin' coach is going to be. But Justin Pugh is somebody that I think this team's going to want to bring back. An offensive lineman, has position versatility, is technically sound. He's not the biggest guy on the team. And I don't know if he has foot quickness and things of that nature to pull, but he doesn't have the power to line up directly with a nose tackle or something like that. But again, he's not a center, so he wouldn't be doing that. I think his best natural position is at left guard, not right tackle, where he was forced to play because the Giants had no right tackle because Jerry Reese relied on Bobby Hart, a guy who's cut right now and a guy who shouldn't have been on the team in the first place. But with this $23 million in cap, with all those guys not on contract, I look at people who are potentially could be cut. I look at Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who has a base salary of $6.4 million next year. Last year of his contract. Getting older. And I love DRC, but he could realistically be cut. And if he's cut, it's going to make our salary cap almost $29 million. If he's a post, so that is something to definitely consider. You also have Brennan Marshall, somebody who came in, high expectations, didn't live up to it. If he's cut, that's going to make it 27. So if you cut both Brennan Marshall and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, you have $33.5 million in cap room. So these are all things that we're going to explore. The Giants will be talking about. You have Dwayne Harris, a guy who has not really lived up to everything, who's been injured. If you cut Dwayne Harris, going back to the 23 that you have, the 22 that you have, he's only going to be 24.8. So these little cuts like this are going to extend our cap room. And then come March, they become free agents if we do cut them. And then we have more money that we can spend on guys like Justin Pugh and all the other free agents that are going to be available. So we're going to need to start replenishing this line. We're going to need to start bringing in some veterans at a lower cost. And I can see the Giants doing that. And there are a lot of free agents coming up. I mean, you have some quarterback free agents that are absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, the Giants don't see them going after that, despite we might need a quarterback. And not even sure what's going on with Eli, looking like he might stay, but I wouldn't rule out him being gone as well. But I think if I'm a betting man right now, he's going to be staying. We got Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, Sam Bradford. 3 quarterbacks right there. Le'Veon Bell, he's more than likely going to be transition tagged or franchise tagged again. Jimmy Graham's going to be a free agent. Luke Jokel. It's nothing that's going to make you jump. But Greg Robinson, again, nothing that's going to make you jump. A lot of these offensive linemen who have been sort of busts. It's unfortunate, but if you get a good offensive lineman, you usually don't let him walk. Nate Solder is a left tackle. He'll be 29 years old, but he'll be commanding around like $10 million a year. So I don't see the Giants going after that. The Giants, like Dave Gettleman said, they want the big mollies. They're going to be looking for this offensive line, either in the draft or bringing in solid veterans. Something that was sort of overlooked by Jerry Reese. I mean, he brought in some people, but it didn't exactly work out. Guys like John Jerry and things like that. So we'll be paying attention to this come March. But in the meantime, just enjoy playoff football. We got the Eagles hosting the Falcons. We got Minnesota hosting the Saints. We have some good AFC matchups, I guess you can say. Now, I don't think anything's out of the realm. I mean, we did see Jacksonville beat Pittsburgh before in Week 5 in Heinz Field. Can it happen again? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen again? No. I think it's going to be a Patriot beating the Titans, and then the Steelers beating Jacksonville, and then AFC Championship game in Foxborough. That's probably what it's going to be. But that's not me going out on a limb whatsoever. Alrighty, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Take care. Have a great one. Bye-bye now.